Welcome back, Tiger fans, to Rockin' Radio's football podcast. I'm Nate Edwards. That's Nathan Hurst. This is Before the Box Score. Remember me? I'm back. I'm back from my hibernation. I'm back from my hiatus. And I brought a new friend because we have, we're not going to call him BK2 because that's disrespectful to BK and to Nathan Hurst. This is Nathan Hurst. Nathan Hurst won. To lift a phrase from Jefferson Starship, we built this space. We built this sports blog on Nate's and Matt's. And Nate Hurst is now going to be the second Nate that is part of the masthead. So welcome, Nathan Hurst, to this is our listenership. This is Nathan Hurst. Say hello.
Hello. So excited to be here. This is going to be awesome.
Yeah. So he is our newest. He had his first article drop today, which is very exciting. I'm talking about the defensive coordinator hire, which we are going to get into this show. But of course, as you have somebody new, let's do a little get to know you. Everybody's got their own backstory. Everyone's got their own origin story as far as Mizzou fanship goes. So we're going to talk to Hurst a little bit about who he is as a Mizzou fan, and then we're going to get into the good stuff on the DC hire, on the defense in general. It's going to be a defense-heavy show. You know, we're going to talk about the commits, the portal additions that we're talking about there. So get ready to feel really good, or maybe really bad. We'll see how you actually feel about the guys who stopped the points. But let's start with Nathan Hurst. As the Mizzou fan, when we get into the beginning of the season, we always do a roll call with Rock Yab. It's like we talk about who you are, how you got there, all that good stuff. So let's go with one of those questions from the roll call. Nathan Hurst, what is your connection to the University of Missouri?
So probably too tight of a connection at this point, but I am a two-time Mizzou graduate. I got 2 degrees from the journalism school. That's how I even got to Columbia in the first place. I grew up in Austin, Texas, which is quite a long way away from Columbia, but knew about the J School and how well established it was. And I at the time, coming out of high school, I knew that I was going to be the next ESPN play-by-play announcer. Had a good family friend of ours that actually did play-by-play for ESPN for the Big 12 for many, many years. And I asked him where do I need to go to do what you do, and he sent me straight here, even though he was actually a Texas alum himself, but he knew that Mizzou was the place to go. And so I kind of just hopped in and signed up, and without even visiting. I did end up. My mom made me come and visit Columbia anyway. I don't think she would have actually let me attend without visiting, but I knew I wanted to come here because I knew that's what I wanted to do. I got here. It was awesome. Didn't end up being an ESPN play-by-play guy, which is I kind of made that decision myself early on in my student career that's not really the direction I wanted to head. But Mizzou stuck with me, and I stuck with Mizzou, and I've always been a just insane college football fan, pretty much any sport for that matter, but especially college football. And so adopted Mizzou very, very quickly at that point. Kind of coming really even from the point I knew I was coming to Mizzou, I started following Mizzou. So that was been 2003. Was when I was first knew I was coming to Mizzou, and 2004 was my first season here as a freshman, and kind of never got rid of me after that.
So which one do you consider like your first full MU football season? Is it 03 or is it 04?
It would have been 04 for sure. It was probably more like November of 03 that I got accepted to Mizzou, and that's when at the moment I got accepted, I knew I was coming here. So that was Brad Smith's
pocket pass
sophomore. Well, his 03 year was his sophomore year. He was still very much, kind of run all over the place. And that was Pinkel's first big break where they went 8-3 that year. And so I was kind of following the team at that point, and excited, about how they were doing, but I would hardly call myself a big, really into it until I got on campus and started going to games.
Yeah. Now, speaking of going to games, here's a little secret for everybody else out there. For all you weirdos who think this is super hot, ladies, take a listen. Where were you watching Mizzou football games for your years at Mizzou?
I was watching them from the south end zone as a member of Marching Mizzou alongside one Nate Edwards for many of those years.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. He played trombone. Okay. Now he's married, so everyone back off. But no, so you were like probably the 6th person I met in my college career, because we got freshmen reported first from Arch Mizzou, and then all you vets came in. I was like, oh wow, look at the old guy who can play trombone really well. That's cool. So yeah, we've known each other for almost 20 years is the punchline there, which sucks. That sucks for everybody. That's too much time.
That's a long time.
You were my second.
I could play trombone loud. Yeah, I was section leader, probably for the detriment of the rest of the band, but I could play the trombone loud. I wouldn't say I could play it well, but I could play really loud. So I was proud of that.
Yeah, that was our specialty, just being loud. So you came in to Mizzou in 04. That was your freshman year. That was your first full season, of course, which is the first disappointing Gary Pinkel season, kind of depending on who you ask. But I guess along those lines, Mizzou fans, you know them. We grade our fandom like rains on a tree. Like here's how we were hurt by this loss. Here's this terrible thing we experienced. So what was your first Mizzou football has hurt me personally? What was your first moment of that?
It was pretty early on, to be honest. I think it was week 2 or 3. I think it was week 3 of 2004. And Mizzou takes a trip south to Troy, Alabama. And I remember watching that game in the lounge of Mark Twain Hall because they had the biggest TV that I knew where to find. It was a Thursday night, and DeMarcus Ware just ragdolled Brad Smith all day. And it was great because, it got me a perfect introduction to Mizzou because we come in ranked. I think it was the first time Mizzou was preseason ranked in 30 years. I mean, since the 80s for sure. And come in, I think we had beaten a couple teams like Arkansas State, maybe Murray State, somebody like that. So it was no competition. And we get to Troy and, third one of those Thursday night road games. I have no idea why they decided to schedule that game in the first place, but they did, and we went down there, and it was not pretty. And that was kind of also the first sign that season was not going to be going how we had hoped that it would go.
Yeah. But also, you're still around, and it's not like Missouri has been absent of greatness during this time. So what is, in your mind, what is the greatest Mizzou football moment for you?
No doubt it was Armageddon at Arrowhead 2007. I was in attendance there since I was in the band. Probably also the coldest game that I've attended in person, but by far the best. I mean, I don't think I really have to go into too many details about that. Everyone, I'd imagine most people our age at least would sign up for that one.
Yeah. So you have been an official fan since 2004. So you're coming on your 20th season as a full-time Mizzou football fan. You are a Texas kid, so that means you are a football junkie. Obviously, going to high school in Texas, you can just, go to homeroom or go to your PE class and bump shoulders with like the next 3-star prospect going to your next P5 school at the next level. So I guess from your experiences, are there any players that you knew in high school or anybody that you were friends with that went on to college football greatness in their time?
So I went to one of the perennially top football high schools in Texas, which is, there's a lot of those, but my specific class was pretty low on the totem pole in terms of Westlake High School classes. I grew up, I watched Drew Brees play for my high school when I was probably middle school age, maybe a little bit younger than that, maybe 5th, 6th grade. And then, so my class didn't really have much going on, but my brother was very good friends with Nick Foles in high school. And Nick Foles was the quarterback, took them to a state championship game. I don't think they won, but they made it there. But we did make it pretty far in the playoffs every year. And my freshman year, we lost to Cedric Benson's team in the state championship game. And my sophomore year, we beat Vince Young in the state semifinals. I mean, I say I was in the band, but I was there and yelling in the Astrodome when we beat Vince Young, which was insane because he was the starting quarterback, starting safety, starting punter, and starting kicker. He did not return punts. He did not return kicks. That was Courtney Lewis, who played for A&M. He was a running back there, but somehow beat them like 56-49 or something crazy. And then we lost to Reggie McNeil's team the next week, who played quarterback for Texas A&M. So definitely ran into some pretty crazy talent watching high school, but none that I was personally aware of or personally knew.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, Missouri high school football is a little bit different than Texas high school football, but hey, we got some good players. Not Vince Young quality, not yet, but we're getting there. So, but yeah, that's a little bit about Nathan Hurst. Obviously, he's got the football bona fides. He's got just as much exposure as I do from the band. Follow along as long as we do, just from an interest standpoint. So hopefully, we can combine our Captain Planet styles to bring you a comprehensive football analysis on our favorite football team, the Missouri Fighting Football Tigers. So let's get into it because there's stuff that's happened. I left you all and I said, hey, be good. Don't do anything crazy. And then we lost our defensive coordinator. So I don't know what y'all were doing, but let's talk about it. It was 2 weeks ago. Blake Baker decided to make the personal move to go to LSU, which is his home state. That's where his family is. And obviously he's going to be the highest paid assistant coach in the country, which, a little additional perk for him there. But kind of quiet on the hiring front. Now, this is kind of how Eli Drinkwitz does it. He is not quick to replace, and there's not really a whole lot of leakage from the Drinkwitz side on who he's talking to and how it's going. Just look at his previous hires, such as Steve Wilkes and Kirby Moore. But Nathan, your first piece today dropped about the defensive coordinator hire and your thoughts on the timing and some names out there. So, I mean, what do you make of this whole situation, starting with Blake Baker leaving and where we are right now?
Yeah, losing Blake Baker is a loss. I mean, he was good. He was a very good coordinator, and really seemed to have the defense trajectory exactly what Eli has planned for it, or hopefully had planned for it. So he really got it up and running. He did great things. We kind of fell into him. So it wasn't like Eli went out, got his guy, brought him in. But we kind of lucked into the fact that he was on staff when Wilkes left, to be honest. So, I don't think losing him was a huge shock by any means, especially to where we lost him to. I mean, I think if there was only one job, one DC job that we were going to lose him to based on the extension that we had signed him, that was going to be the one. And it just happened to open at the right time. So, he's going to be the highest paid assistant coach in the country. Good for him. If you ask me, is he the best best assistant coach in the country? If you line them all up, I'd probably say probably not. I mean, he's good. He's great. Is he the best? That's kind of hard to measure, I'd say, but he's getting paid like it. So, good for him. Is it my money? Would I have been sad if we made him the highest paid defensive coach in the country? No, but at the same time, is he worth that? I don't know. There are other good coaches, so it's not like it's an irreplaceable loss.
Yeah. I am curious, we've only heard really one name for sure, DJ Durkin, and a couple other names on the periphery. I think Peter Sermon's the one that's dropped recently. But I am really curious what Eli is looking for in this new hire. Does he keep the 4-2-5? Now, obviously, base defense is a relic. Everybody runs some sort of nickel package. Everybody now has a full-time nickel back or a third safety on the roster, and it's very multiple anymore. There's really not a base defense that anyone runs other than Iowa's 4-3. So, when you say, "Oh, I'm going to hire a 4-2-5 guy," well, that's kind of a nonsense, antiquated way of looking at it. I'm curious who, the style of play. Does he want someone who is as aggressive as Blake Baker? Does he want someone who is more of a kind of shell defense, which is what Steve Wilkes liked to run a lot? I think, and does that person bring that style in, or does he adapt and become oh, you want me to be aggressive? I'll be aggressive. I don't know what any of this means. I don't know what he's looking for. But to me, the story is going to be what kind of defensive coordinator is he looking for? Because he did, straight man Ryan Walters. He did straight zone 4-man front rush with Steve Wilkes. And then he did havoc at all costs Blake Baker. Unless I'm missing one, that's pretty much every style you can think of. What do you think he's going to do with the pieces that he currently has?
I can tell you what I hope he does, and I hope he sticks with someone that's as aggressive as Blake Baker was, at least for this next year. So, I guess let me back that up a little bit. I hope he finds someone that can be flexible with what he does, but is willing to be aggressive. with the amount of talent that the defense is losing just to the NFL, we're going to have to find some ways to get stops and to make plays, and I think that aggressive style is the best way to do that. You can't, when you're going to be at a talent disadvantage, which we kind of always are. Not as we've closed the gap, but we're always going to be probably a little bit at a disadvantage. You're going to have to find stuff in the margins, and being aggressive is going to make that happen. So that's not to say you wouldn't want a guy that can also learn when to pull it back when it's appropriate. But I think for the most part, you're going to want to keep the pedal to the metal, and especially with what talent we do have coming in, your Williams and Nwaneris, your transfer portal guys, Flag and Toriano Pride, some really athletic guys. That's going to lend itself, I think, more to that attacking style. Take the ball away, and maybe it's a little bit of feast and famine, where you might give up some big plays, which we're no stranger to doing in the play under the Blake Baker defense. But I think that with offense being as hopefully as explosive as we think it's going to be, or hope it's going to be, that's okay, as long as you're also making plays on the defensive end and creating havoc in some way or other.
Yeah, I mean, stylistically, or just from an optics standpoint, I love a havoc defense. Right now, some of this is when did you grow up? What football were you watching when you quote unquote fell in love with it? And when I did, it was an up-tempo spread passing offense, and it was an aggressive blitz heavy kind of defense. I love that stuff. I love it in basketball too. I love the 40 minutes of hell from Mike Anderson. Like that's my preferred style of basketball to watch. I love the spread offense. I love a havoc defense. So like I'm going to be biased, and there's probably no way I'm ever going to change that. I also know that's not the only way to play. But I tend to agree with you, especially if you are going to be, either in a situation where your offense is going to be really freaking good, like scoring 30 seconds good, or you're operating with like maybe not as much talent, then yeah, you need to be aggressive in the havoc standpoint. Before I ask, actually, I just had another question. Do you make anything of DJ Smith apparently not even getting a shot at being the next DC?
Yeah, I don't know what to make of it, to be honest, because we don't really know what kind of shot he has got. I mean, maybe I will say it's safe to say at this point, we're almost 3 weeks in now, or more than 2 weeks anyway. He wasn't the first choice, and he's probably not second choice either at this point. That doesn't mean he didn't, he isn't or wasn't seriously considered. My thought is, in the past, if you look at Eli's history, he's brought in coordinators who have experience doing that job. He has, even Blake Baker, who he elevated, had experience in his previous stop as a defensive coordinator. So I think Eli's looking for someone who has that experience. And does that mean that probably means we lose DJ? Maybe, and it seems like that might be a risk that Eli is willing to take. But also think about, I mean, we have some experience way before Eli with bringing on a coordinator who's also our recruiting coordinator. And if you think about Dave Yost, he was wearing about 4 different hats at once. So if you did elevate DJ Smith, he's been a really good recruiting coordinator for us. Who replaces him there? If anyone replaces him there, which I feel like you would have to do, because that's a full-time job in and of itself. Mm-hmm. So you're replacing that person now and elevating someone who, while he probably is a great culture fit in the locker room, and I'm sure all the players love him, and it seems like they do, you're elevating someone who doesn't have that experience as the head guy, as the play caller on defense. And it seems like that's something that Eli seems to prioritize. And to be honest, I think probably rightly so at this level, at the SEC, playing for a chance at a playoff spot. You want to bring in guys that have done the job before. You're not wanting to train someone on the job at this level.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, the players are always going to want the guys who are already there to get promoted. That's always what a player wants. There's not a single player on any roster that's going to raise his hand and say, why don't you check out Tulane's defensive coordinator? I think he's pretty good. Like, no player is going to say that. They want their guys there forever because that's who recruited them. That's who brought them in. That's their relationship. That's their connection to the school. If they lose that, then it's like, okay, so what am I playing for? So I understand that's what, players probably want DJ elevated. I think that's fine. I think he could be a good defensive coordinator one day. But to your point, every move this staff has made this offseason has been pointing in one direction, and that's we are shooting for the playoff or bust next year. And you're not going to do that with a first-time coordinator, even if he's had co-DC on his business card for one full season. I don't care. You got to get someone in who's going to be the coach of the defense, who's got experience, game day experience, calling plays, managing a defense, all that stuff. And again, I think DJ Smith will be good at that someday. But if your goal, if you've kept your offense in place, if you brought in the portal additions that you did, you need an experienced DC piece. And that's probably what he's looking for, regardless of caliber, regardless of school that this person's going to come from. Someone who's done it for a while and is highly regarded is going to be able to jive with whatever Eli Drinkwitz wants him to do. So I agree with that. The name that was bandied around, I think yesterday or today, is Peter Sermon, I think is who it was. Cal's defensive coordinator out in Berkeley. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Cal football, they are basically the Iowa of the West. If you don't know Iowa, they're basically just perennially 2015 Missouri with the greatest defense you've ever seen and the worst offense you've ever seen. Literally top 3 defense for the past 3 years for Iowa, bottom 3 offense the past 3 years on offense. So that is what Cal is. So if you're looking for a defensive coordinator, you could do a lot worse than Cal's defensive coordinator. They've done tremendous work, even with recruiting limitations. Obviously, that's a smart kid school. It's tougher to bring kids on there. I don't know where else you go, though. I mean, have you heard obviously DJ Durkin was banning around. Now we got Sermon. Is there anybody else out there that you've heard, or is there anybody that you would like for them to take a look at and why?
That I've heard, no, because this has been a really quiet search, which seems to be seems to be Drinkwitz's MO for all these. I mean, no one had heard of Kirby Moore until he was hired. No one heard of, we'd heard of Steve Wilkes, but we didn't know that he had any ties to the program. And then all of a sudden, boom, he's hired. So that doesn't surprise me. I mean, Peter Sermon is a solid name. I mean, you look at results and he's got them. I'd be a little concerned with how just bringing him on and coaching for a style of play that their coach is a defensive guy. They play really conservatively. That is kind of, that changes how you approach a game from a defensive standpoint. If you know your offense is also going to be really conservative, and that seems, hopefully, fingers crossed, not to be what Mizzou's been doing lately on offense. So he might have to change his tune a little bit, because I don't think Cal really runs that aggressive defense that we were talking about. They're more of a sit on you, hope that kind of let you mess up, hope you mess up eventually, and don't work the ball all the way down the field. So I mean, is he a name worth interviewing? Sure, absolutely. But as far as other guys that I would like to bring in, other than that your pie in the sky Jim Leonard's, we've been hearing it sounds even today like Jim Harbaugh is going to go to the Chargers. It seems like they're basically happening. Does a Jesse Minter stick around in college, or does he follow Harbaugh to the NFL, or does he stay at Michigan for whoever's going to replace? Does he replace Harbaugh? So there are some pie in the sky names that I'm not sure that any are worth really discussing, because it seems like that's probably not who we're going to be able to aspire to get at this point. That said, we've got a lot of money to throw around. We're going to offer Baker more than $2 million, and we also get a nice little buyout from him as well. So the money's there. The money's going to be there for whoever we want to go after. But as far as who that's going to be, I couldn't say.
Yeah, I mean, Jesse Minter would be cool.
It would be really cool. I'm not sure that he would entertain it, but
I think he's more of an NFL guy. I know he had a stop at Vanderbilt, and I remember his defense is there. I was like, dude, how are you at Vanderbilt? Like, you are awesome. But I think he's more of an NFL guy. And so if Harbaugh goes, I'm assuming he goes with Harbaugh. Okay. Jim Leonard, again, not really an aggressive guy. Midwestern as hell. Wisconsin guy through and through. Could afford him. Is that something that he's also very much like a stylistic guy. So that could be interesting. He wants to be a head coach. I know he really wanted the Wisconsin job a couple years ago, or 2 years ago, and had his tryout and Didn't get it. So if you were to hire him, you'd understand that it'd be very clear that he's using this as a stepping stone to something else, which Eli Drinkwitz has been open and say, yes, that's what I want. I don't want you to come here and take a lateral job somewhere else. I want you to come here and take the next run up in the ladder. So like, I'm cool with that. Drink's cool with that. You should be cool with that. It is good when your coaches get promoted to something else. That is objectively a good thing. I don't really have any other good names for you. I mean, you could look at like a Tony White out of Nebraska. Nebraska's defense was excellent last year. Now their offense stunk, so they didn't really have to, I don't know how hard opposing offenses were trying against Nebraska, but he has had a couple stops where he's been good. He was the defensive coordinator at Syracuse, and they were pretty good defense there. Maybe you look at like a Joe Rossi or a Scotty Hazelton. Again, Big Ten guys. Scotty Hazelton was at Michigan State. He's been at Wyoming before that. Great defenses there. But like I really personally, I wanted Kane Womack out of South Alabama. He was the head coach there. Really good defensive coordinator, but he went and joined his BFF, Kalen DeBoer, at Alabama because they both worked at Indiana together when Indiana was really good during the COVID season. So I don't have an answer for you. And I think, as we have learned, when Eli Drinkwitz makes a hire, it's one, very quiet, and two, it's a guy that's on nobody's big board. So I'm very excited to figure out what that's going to be. Just keep in mind, the reason they're keeping this quiet is for a litany of reasons. But in college football, you always get the guy that you wanted first. That's the rule. So that doesn't always happen. That's the secret, right? You probably offered 6 or 7 people and they told you no, or like you got outbid. But they're always going to say, this is the guy that we wanted the entire time. So that's why they keep it very quiet and only make the official offers out there when they actually get the job. This isn't the NFL when they give you a list of guys that they interviewed, which I don't know. Which let me ask you this. Which do you like better? Do you like the cloak and dagger tracking airplanes version of hiring from college football, or do you prefer the NFL? Here is everybody that we talked to and their names, addresses, and lists of fears.
Yeah, I like the cloak and dagger, to be honest. If I see the list of everyone that he's talking to, it's probably just going to do nothing but make me mad, to be honest. It's more opportunities to be like, that guy? Really? What are you thinking? Yeah. So, which can be said for some of the one, at least one of the names that we've kind of heard rumored in DJ Durkin. He's kind of like what are you thinking? Now that would have happened too if he were to have been hired as well. But at least I can get mad for real as opposed to get mad just for even entertaining the thought. So give me a quiet search, give me a secret search. Tell me at the end of it, because I don't have a say on it. So just tell me who it's going to be, when it's going to be, and let's move on.
I can think of a pretty creative defensive mind who is currently looking for a job. Let's get Bill Belichick. Let's bring him into the college ranks. I'm sure he'd be super happy having to do social media graphics and trying to connect with 18-year-olds who can't tell you anything about pattern matching but can run really fast. Like, I'm thinking that, like, Bill Belichick is obviously a football guy. That's what he is good at. That's what he loves. But I'd have to imagine college defensive coordinator might be Bill Belichick's personal hell.
So I think he would look awesome in those photo shoots with the high school recruits, a la Brian Kelly with the circle camera around there. I think he would love doing that. We'd probably have to up the amount we're willing to pay by about 10 times, and it would look kind of weird to have your defensive coordinator making twice as much as your head coach is. But hey. Maybe he likes to hunt and fish in mid-Missouri, and we could pull him in that way.
I do know Belichick is quietly a man of class. He's been on yacht magazines. I think he owns a couple of vineyards, if I remember correctly. So like, he is a frumpy old poop when it comes to like interacting with the media in like football, but apparently he's a nice guy, kind of like Saban, except Saban mellowed out as he got older. And I feel like Belichick just gets angrier. So. Yeah, I don't know. That'd be interesting, but it's one of those things we're going to find out when we find out, and we will break it down when it happens, but it's unfortunately, they're really good at keeping this thing in the dark. So that's just, we get to play the waiting game, and maybe by next show, we will figure out who that's going to be. So we talked about the DC. Let's talk about the defense, because obviously we've got some additions. We had a weird addition and then a loss, but a lot of the additions on, the big splashy ones have been on defense. If you look back at the portal additions that this team has done, at least for this current portal period, we're talking like a Toriano Pride, as you mentioned before, he was a top 100 player in his class. He's a cornerback out of St. Louis, played at East St. Louis, and been at Clemson the past 2 years. You look at Darius Smith, another blue chipper, really could not see the field at Georgia. Has only got like 30 snaps to his name, but it's a blue chip prospect. It's like, hey, this dude can come and be something and actually see the field. So that's more of a long-term investment. You have a Chris McClellan, who had been widely pursued by pretty much every SEC, Big 10, Big 12 team out there. And he ends up coming to Mizzou, which was a coup for the Tigers. Then, of course, you have Corey Flagg, which is your basically your Tyron Hopper replacement. And then Zion Young, who is out of Michigan State. Very experienced piece, is going to be coming in and stepping in for Darius Robinson. And of course, I almost forgot Sterling Webb, the unheralded 2-star recruit out of St. Louis, who tore it up at New Mexico State and is coming back home. So you look at those and you go, okay, this is very clear. They are looking to make an impact on the line, try and fill in the gap in the secondary, and hopefully build up enough experience in the linebacking core that you can rotate 2 or 3 guys. Which of those defensive additions from the portal, which one are you most excited about? And then which one do you think is going to see the field first?
Yeah, I mean, the most excited about probably Darius Smith, just the pedigree that he brings. 4-star, played at Georgia, didn't really seem like he found the right position there. I think they were playing him more at off-ball linebacker more than anything, and that's something he didn't really want to do. So getting his athleticism on the edge, opposite of a Williams Nwaneri, opposite a couple of these other guys that we brought in. I think he's going to be the guy that's probably going to see the field the earliest, to be honest. And could him and Pride, I would say him and Toriano Pride would probably see the field the fastest, and make the biggest impact right off the bat. But what I was struck by with the whole list is it was very clear and impressive that the staff identified clearly what are the big holes that we have in this defense. And the same can be said for the offense too. But what are the holes we have? Well, we're losing 2 NFL cornerbacks. They bring in one of the top cornerback recruits from his class just a couple years ago, a guy that they were very much in the mix for. And initially, I think we were number 2 on his list to Clemson, and Clemson, ended up going to Clemson in Toriano Pride, bring him back home. To bolster a already pretty experienced defensive back room, so they brought him back, and then the defensive line. Sterling Webb is going to fill a really big hole left by 3 or 4 defensive tackles that we're losing. Then we bring in Darius Smith, we bring in Zion Young, McClellan as well. So I mean, those are four guys right there that could be the starting defensive line this time in August. So that was clearly the need. They needed another, at least at the time. We'll see what the new defensive coordinator wants to do. But at the time, it was clear that they needed a replacement for Hopper, kind of an explosive guy that's going to run downhill and make big plays. That seems like what Baker recruited Flagg to do at Miami and had him do when Baker was at Miami. And then Baker left, and then it seemed like Flagg's usage slowly petered off after that, as they changed defensive coordinators and did whatever else. I don't know. I haven't followed Miami football super closely. But he played quite a bit his sophomore year when Baker was running that defense. And so it seems like Baker wanted him here. He's got that same plan. So assuming the new guy who's coming in wants to use him similarly, I think that could be a really exciting piece to add. And maybe he doesn't play every down, like Hopper tended to, but that's fine, because we've got 2 other returning linebackers that are going to fill the hole there. So maybe he's a passing down guy and just goes and really wrecks shop when you need him to 30 plays a game or something.
No, yeah, Corey Flagg is a havoc guy. That he's definitely a Blake Baker player. When I watched his film, like he even lined up with like hand in the dirt defensive end a couple times. So he likes to get after it and cause havoc. The thing about Flagg is like he's almost given the quality of play that we saw from Chuck Hicks and Tristan Newsom, especially down the stretch at the end of the season. It kind of feels like Flagg is more of an insurance policy. Like in case one of them gets messed up, like you need to play three. There's two linebackers on the field. You got to play three. Just as a rotation standpoint. So I think that if Baker was still here, we'd see a ton of flag. I don't know what the new guy's going to think, but like you got three quality options, and Newsom and Flag are play really similarly, and really Chuck Hicks is essentially kind of a havocy get after it linebacker too. He filled in for Chad Bailey, who was more of the tackle machine. I don't really think that's Chuck Hicks' style. I think he's more of an aggressive guy, but he played pretty well as your inside linebacker or your traditional like Mike. I do like Flag. I think the guy that really gets me going though is Zion Young, because not only is he, to me, he seems to be the Darius Robinson replacement. He's not like as heavy as Darius Robinson, but remember, Robinson was an interior guy for like 4 years, and Young is a clear pass rusher. He's 6'6", 265, or at least he was in his last season at East Lansing. But this is a guy who is still got 2 years to play, and he's already played 722 snaps. 538 of those came last year with the Spartans. Now, they were not very good, but he, on his own, 38 tackles, 5.5 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks, 6 run stuffs. If he was making a tackle, the player was going down on average 2.3 yards away from the line of scrimmage. Like, that is pretty much less tackles for loss, but essentially that's a Johnny Walker clone. I like Johnny Walker. I think he's great. I think I could potentially be great. If we have 2 of those, even better. You take a look that you still have Joe Moore. Obviously, you add your favorite Darius Smith, who, if he can pop, boy, whoa, what a rotation you got there. And that's even before you talk about Williams Nwaneri, one of the top players in the country, Elias Williams, who was so good that he was a late blooming 4-star. On top of Ja'Kai Lane out of Troy, Missouri, who I loved from the last signing class, and Serene Tunkara out of Texas. Like, there's a lot of potential here. But if you're looking for proven pieces, yeah, you'd go, well, maybe Johnny Walker or Joe Moore. No, man, like the proven of the experience and the production is Zion Young. And if he can stay healthy, I think he's going to be your starting outside edge. Probably game one, probably not starting reps, if you will. I think they have the potential to rotate. But that's the guy who I think is going to be really impressive. So I can't wait to see it. Can we talk about this defense as a quality unit? Because I'm going to, Hurst, I don't know if you know this, but I kind of have a reputation of being a negative Nate. Now, I say that I'm not negative. I'm just trying to observe things realistically. I don't think this defense is going to be very good next year. And I'm not saying that just because Blake Baker's gone. That is certainly playing a part of it. And I don't know who the next guy is, so that's also playing a part of it too. But you don't lose 3 NFL defensive backs and get better. You don't lose an NFL caliber defensive end and get better. You don't lose experienced pieces at the linebacking core, even if they were injured in the last 3 games, and get better. And it's certainly tougher to get better than 18th in the country as far as defense goes, when you then lose all that and, oh yeah, by the way, bring in a new edge rushing coach and a new defensive coordinator. So I'm not trying to say this team's going to stink. I think this could be a fun shootouty kind of team, but I don't think the defense is going to be in a position to win games like they did in 21, like they were in a couple times in 22. Am I being a jerk, or do you agree with me?
Definitely not being negative. I just being realistic. No one outside of Georgia and Alabama get better losing 4-5 NFL players off their defense from year to year. And so are they going to be even as good? No. They could bring Bill Belichick in to be the defensive coordinator, and they're not going to be better than they were last year. But I don't think they have to be. They have to be competent, certainly, and they have to be create havoc and get some stops. But there's some creative ways to do that. I think the offense is going to be explosive enough that we're gonna see a little more of a shootout type team. the scores are going to be a little higher than they've been in the past. But I think you could still win that way. I mean, we've had plenty of Mizzou teams that have won that way and won double-digit games that way. In the SEC, no, but I think with the offensive skill talent that we have returning, there's no reason why we can't take this diminished defense and still win a lot of games.
Yeah. I mean, you have questions on offense too, but you return your quarterback. You're adding 2 experienced running backs who have done well, granted at the Sun Belt level, but still that's a good conference. Not SEC, I understand, but still it's a good conference. You can return your top 3 wideouts who are awesome. You return your freshman tight end who's going to be awesome. He's going to be a sophomore next year. Your offensive line was a finalist for the Joe Moore Award. Now they lost 2 guys, both of which might be in the NFL. I don't know, but good, experienced 6th-year guys that you're replacing with a awesome transfer in portal transfer in Caden Green. We'll talk about that next show. So like your offense is set up to be, have question marks, but be really good. Hey, man, Ole Miss won shootouts all, past 3 seasons. USC won shootouts in 2022, not so much in 2023. That's not the point. You can be a really good offense and a defense that is, what's the positive term? Opportunistic, right? Opportunistic. Not that you get stops all the time, but you get a couple stops when you absolutely need to. A key turnover here or a 3 and out there, and then let your offense that just goes points, just let them do their thing. So there are a lot of ways you can win a football game. Having a terrible defense certainly does not say that you can't win 10 games. It probably precludes you from winning the whole thing, but, also Oregon has been in the playoff and close to a championship multiple times before. It's just everything this staff has been doing, and we've said it so many times, has been saying, we're going to the playoff. We're going to the playoff. We're going to make noise in the playoff. And to lose all those pieces was anticipated. Losing your coordinator was not. So you got to nail the hire and then hope that he can, like you said, be flexible. But yeah, man, I don't know. I'm preparing myself to be hurt by a defense that can't stop anything. We were already let down by the big plays. We're very sad about those, but like, I don't know, man. Can you make it through a whole season of a defense that's terrible? Are you prepared for that?
I mean, I've done it before, so I can do it again. We've had plenty of poor defenses in Mizzou's history. Yeah. Thankfully, most of the time they've been coupled with pretty good offenses. So hopefully that's the case again. I mean, back to your point though, you can win a lot of games that way. Washington made the national championship game with a defense that was not good until they had to be.
Yeah. And
then when they had to be, they stepped up. But they, for most of every game that they played, with only a couple of exceptions, were not very good, especially statistically looking at it. I mean, they would just get run all over. Then somehow they kind of would bow up at the very end. It would get takeaways. I mean, those are stops, and I think to win that way, you have to be aggressive. You have to create takeaways, get a couple extra possessions for your explosive offense. Because if you just let even if your offense is great, but you let the other team work their way methodically down the field over and over and over again, you're just going to run out of time to score enough points to win that way. So, we've been talking about it all show, but bringing in a guy that can be aggressive, that can create some big plays, give up some big plays, that's going to happen. But if you've got an explosive offense, you feel confident that you're going to come right back and answer in kind.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's close out on a positive. We are almost a month away or a month out from the end of the Missouri football season. I don't know if you remember this, but Missouri won 11 games last year. Only lost twice. Beat Ohio State. I remember that. I was there. That was a great game. Whenever you have seasons like that, when you have big, like double-digit wins or marquee bowl games, your mind can't help but rank it against all the other seasons. I think BK and I have done this a little bit, and of course Parker and I talked about it a little bit during the interim. But 4 weeks removed, almost 4 weeks removed, where does the 2023 Missouri football season stack in your rankings of greatest seasons of all time?
It's up there. I mean, it's way up there. I wouldn't put it number one. I would put I think in my personal ranking would be 2007 number one. But like that was the year that we were the closest to being a national championship team.
Yeah.
I mean, you could say the same for 2013 in that we were both a conference championship win away from the national championship game. 2007 that seemed like a more realistic opportunity, especially with how crazy that whole year played out. Every team had 2 losses. If we put us up against that LSU team that won the championship that year, I think we would have had a real good chance against them just with our explosive offense, and they did not have an explosive offense. So I would say 2007, number one, 2013, number two, just because once again, we were right there. I think that team wasn't as good overall, to be honest. They were very good, but they would have also met Jameis Winston in Florida State and probably would not have gone great for them in that championship game. So that's why I put that number two. But this one's got to be number three. Even over the 2014 season where we kind of, to be honest, lucked into a SEC East championship. Yeah. We very much won it in 2013 by beating Georgia in Athens, but that same year we got blanked at home by Indiana. I don't know if you remember that. So I can't put any season where we get blanked at home by Indiana higher than the one that we just saw. Sorry. So I'd put this season number three and 2014 number four, and then you're going back to the late 60s or early, before you're looking at other comparable seasons. And I was not alive at that time, so I can't accurately rank those.
Yeah, I just, man, we are a vibes-based economy anymore. And going off of vibes, 2007 for me is number one. Just because I didn't think they were ever going to lose. Now, some of that might be youthful naivete. But even then, I was just like, Oklahoma will be close, but like, we can still get them. 2013, I was less sure of. I thought this is one of the best defenses I've ever seen. But we also had wee little Matty Mock just throwing jump balls to DGB and Marcus Lucas and LaDainian Washington. And those are kind of risky. It's like, they can be beat, but like, wow, these are the best lines I've ever seen in my life. This is great. I don't think there's any point in this season, this specific season, 2023, where I thought Mizzou was going to dominate their opponent. There was no point where I'm like, they're gonna whip him by like 20. And obviously that happened a couple times, but I never thought that going in. I thought that with the 07 team. I occasionally thought that with the 13 team. I just never bought into that with 23. Same for 14. I was like, this is the greatest defense we've ever seen. The offense is going to poop themselves somehow and mess this up. So the 23 team made me feel really good because I never thought that they could do the things that they did, and they just continued to do them. And it was fun. You had good stories. You had the Cody Schrader story. You had the Brady Cook comeback from getting booed against Kansas State to, being cheered at the press conference for the Cotton Bowl. Luther Burden, obviously hometown hero. You got Mookie Cooper, you got Theo Weiss who came in. You have the offensive line going from bad to great. You had the defense line was just like a bunch of transfers that kind of had to go somewhere else to be great, and they were great. Ennis Rakestraw is an undersized guy who's the best corner in the SEC. There's just so many things that you can look at, and they won games, man. And sometimes they blew out their opponent, and sometimes they didn't. But like, you got the fourth quarter, and it was Cody Schrader time. Just muscle hamster's going to run. You had that defense who was just havoc and aggressive, and it was just fun. It was a fun team, and maybe because I kept getting surprised that they won or like would blow people out, like, this is fun. I like it. But I don't. You lost to the Heisman Trophy winner, and you lost to Georgia. Like, you weren't going to play for anything other than a super cool bowl game, which is good. Don't get me wrong, but like, it's not going to top 07 or 13. So I think, I'm with you. I think I'm putting it third. I think it's third. And 14 is a far, far fourth. That offense was not good, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was fourth. If 2010 had ended a little differently, as instead of just the worst interception I've seen in my entire life thrown by Blaine Gabbert against Iowa, that one could be up there, could rival number four, because that was a 10-2 season, beating number one Oklahoma at home. A lot of good stuff that year up until the very end, which was disappointing. But
you also lost to a Tommy Tuberville Texas Tech team. That was not great.
That wasn't great. But we did have the Mo Miracle. So.
Oh, that's right. Oh man. It's about moments, man.
Yeah.
Like that's what the seasons are about. The moments are the stuff you remember. Yeah, 2010 was a really cool season too. Oh man, memories. Well, we're not gonna chow on member berries for the rest of the night, so we'll call it there. But yeah, we'll hopefully, like I said, hopefully we'll get a defensive coordinator by the next time we talk to you guys. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Hopefully you enjoy Missouri basketball in between the, oh my God. Well, maybe pick up a good book. Maybe get into reading. I don't know. Hang out with your kids. Go hike some trails. Better yourself. Learn how to cook something because it's a long way to football season. So anyway, Hurst, you just completed your first show on the same day that you wrote your first article. Congratulations, man. It's been a banner day for you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a long one. I'm probably gonna go pass out as soon as we hang up here. It's been definitely an exciting day for sure. I'm really happy to be on here. Hopefully I'll be allowed to come back the next time.
Yeah,
but we'll have to see.
For sure. Yeah, I'll keep you around for a little bit longer. But that's the show for today. As always, we appreciate the downloads and the subscriptions. You can leave a comment or rate us. We love all types of feedback from you all. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Nate G. Edwards. He's at Burst to Hurst. And of course, you can follow the Rock M flagship at Rock M Nation and our podcasting outlet at Rock M Radio. We appreciate you tuning in this time. We'll try to do better next time. And until then, MIZ.
ZOU.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning into Rock M Radio, a proud partner of Fans First Sports Network. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to see more just like it beamed directly into your personal device, just click the subscribe button below. Bing. And you can find this podcast through the Apple Podcast app or for iPhone, or the Google Podcast app for Android, or whatever app you use to listen to your podcast. We are also available on Spotify. Just search for Rock M Radio. And if you like other sports, Fans First Sports Network is a podcast network that has coverage of all other teams, Major League Baseball, MLS, NFL, whatever you want to listen and read about. It is a great network full of really fantastic podcasts. So look them up and subscribe to any and all of those podcasts. Rock M Radio will be back with more episodes coming soon. Thanks.